I chose to refer to this meeting as Elul 1, a reality check. And I've been thinking about how people prepare, Chazal referred to it as Askein Atzmcha Baprosdor Kedei Shetikones Latraklin, to prepare yourself in the anteroom so that you go into the main room uh, properly prepared. And that doesn't just refer to the span of our lives and our preparation for Olam Haba, but it refers to Elul and our preparation for this meeting. And it's important to recognize that we're talking about having a private meeting with the Ribono Shel Olam at some point during Aseret Yemei Tshuva. It doesn't come for everybody only on Rosh Hashanah. It can come at any point. The Svarim make reference to the fact that you will feel a surge, an emotional, a sort of a spiritual, emotional surge, often accompanied with tears. But that's your moment. That moment is when your meeting happened. So when you're preparing for a meeting, there are certain fundamental things that you need to do to prepare for the meeting that it just doesn't make sense not to. And that is, you need to get to know as best as you can who it is that you're meeting with. And you, of course, need to know yourself. And the encounter is meaningful to the extent that you've done your homework to ascertain who it is that you're meeting with and who you are. If you took 2 weeks of tennis lessons and you're going to meet and play with a world champion tennis player, so your expectations have to be realistic, that you're basically going to be the one who catches the balls after he serves. You can't expect that you're actually going to make contact with one of those serves. And if you do, it would be a great day. And it would be silly for somebody to say, yeah, but you didn't return it to his backhand. Like, what? That doesn't take into account the encounter at all. So the encounter needs to include both an awareness of who it is that you're meeting and who you are coming into that meeting. And as far as who it is that you're meeting, certainly Exhibit A for that is the Chovos HaLevavos and the Derech Hashem, who describe who the Ribono Shel Olam is. Now, a full awareness of the Ribono Shel Olam is not possible for anyone other than the Ribono Shel Olam. But an awareness to the extent that we are able to make ourselves prepared, we need to inch towards an awareness to the extent that a human being, that a created being, and the human being is the only one who can think about and try to apprehend who it is that they're meeting with. That's not something that was given to any other creature in the world. They can't think about who they're going to meet. And that awareness allows us to say certain things about the Ribono Shel Olam that, for the purposes of our discussion, are very important. One is the expression that we use, Avinu Malkeinu. So that implies the first aspect of our relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam is personal on the level of father and king. And whatever father and king conjures up for a person, so that will help him relate to who it is that he's going to have a meeting with. And so if there is any damage in the person's feelings about father and king, so for example, if a person is living under communist rule and king implies something very cruel and manipulative and self-serving. So he's going to have to do work in order to adjust for that. Same thing is true with father. It's interesting that there's a way of knowing if you're on the right road. And that is that it will energize you. If it doesn't energize you, then you're not heading towards an actual relationship with the Ribono Shalom. The relationship with the Ribono Shalom is designed so that a person who is trying to be close to the Ribono Shalom feels energized by coming closer to the Ribono Shalom. So if Avinu and Malkeinu don't energize the person, then they probably have some residual distortion about what Avinu means and what Malkeinu means, which they should work through as they approach this meeting, because if they have a distorted picture of Avinu and Malkeinu, the meeting is itself going to be therefore distorted. Another critical, and perhaps the most critical term that we use to refer to the Ribono Shalom is kadosh. And kadosh is an expression of how a person evolves spiritually towards the Ribono Shalom. And let's take a moment to just analyze what that is. Kedusha is juxtaposed to its opposite, which is Tuma. Now, you may say, well, Tuma would seem to have its opposite being in Tahara, and that certainly is true, but the Tahara is a state of being that allows you to approach Kedusha. So the Torah is Kadosh, and it's meant to be learned b'tahara. So it is, while it's true that we typically associate Tuma and Tahara as opposites, but for the purposes of the meeting with Hashem, it is useful to talk about Tuma as opposed to Kedusha. And the reason that's important is because the two forces that exist in the world, the force that pulls us towards good is the force that allows us to connect with, and that term that we use for connection is dveikus, that to connect with Kedusha, with Hashem. And the force that operates in the opposite direction pulls us towards Tuma. And in understanding this, we always are talking about that which energizes the person. So there's an emotion involved here. This is not simply knowing the good path and knowing the bad path. The Torah uses the words ahava and mo'as, vayimoasu. There is a love which is always associated with dveikus. Dveikus is always associated with love. And there is a mo'es, which is a distancing, a revulsion, a repelling from. So when a person is coming closer to Hashem, one of the ways that he knows that he's on the right track, I mentioned, is energy. And the other is that he will find the opposite to be revolting. So it's Oave Hashem, Sinu Ra. Sina and Mo'as are very closely related words. We don't get into that right now, but the Oave Hashem Sinu Ra is a measure of the degree to which I love Kedusha, and I love that which brings me Kedusha. So that means that since the mitzvos were all given in order to help us come closer to Hashem, they are Ratz Hashem, Kodesh Baruch Hu, Lizakos es Yisrael. They cleanse us and they help us come closer to Hashem. So we're looking always for Ahava, for Ahavas Torah and Ahavas Chesed, and a love of the mitzvos. And the measure of that is that we become increasingly revolted by and ma'as to that which drags us away. So when we're preparing for this meeting, we need to know that the one that we're meeting with is the absolute kadosh. We even repeat it 3 times. Kabbalistic reasons, we repeat it 3 times. We don't just say kadosh hu, we say kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. And we are trying to be dovek. That means we're trying to have a meeting in which we are as close to him as this moment in our lives allows for. By assessing ourselves, we can map ourselves on this infinite continuum where on one end of the continuum, the only thing that gives us energy and the only thing that draws us is the love that we have for Kedusha. And at the other extreme, we are sort of a mixed bag. Well, that's not the other extreme. The other extreme is that we actually get our life energy from that which is distant from Hashem. And that's a really bad place to be, because that's what defines a Rasha, is somebody who gets their life energy from that which is distant, that which Hashem wants us to be mo'es, wants us to hate. Maybe hate is not such a useful word. Vayimoasu is rejection. That we rejected Eretz Yisrael, we reject Kedusha, so then we are attaching ourselves to Ra. So this is simply a way of knowing how we approach this meeting. And that is to the extent that we can gain a little bit more clarity from year to year, a little bit more clarity, or sometimes if we had a tough year, it's revisiting perhaps clarity that we've had in the past. The clarity of Hashem being Avinu, Malkeinu, and Kadosh. There's an aspect of Kadosh and Nora. That's not the essence that we're looking to try to get close to. We want to get a zone in on the fact that Hashem coming to this meeting is the Kadosh, that there is nothing other than Hashem's Kedusha. We are trying to assess where we are up to in terms of to what degree Kedusha, use any expression you want, turns us on, floats your boat, whatever expression you want to use for it gives you energy, as opposed to the places where the opposite gives energy. And I think it's important to just add in closing that negativity, any negativity, is going to cause us to feel a little bit less alive, and it's going to cause us to look for more life energy. And the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMavis, however you want to refer to that force, is always there to offer a substitute life force, which will take us further and further away from the source of Kedusha. So negativity becomes a big factor in this meeting. You go into the meeting with negativity, whether it's negativity towards yourself, towards life, towards others, whatever it is. If you go in with negativity, you're going to be causing yourself to feel a little bit less alive by Kedusha. And the result is you're going to be drawn to the offerings of the other side, which offers all sorts of surrogate and substitutes for that life force. So again, this was just the opening meeting to talk about what Elul involves in preparing for this meeting. And preparing for the meeting, we've suggested, means trying to get to know who it is that we're meeting with, trying to feel a sense of desire to be close to the one that we're meeting with, and checking ourselves to see where we are on the spectrum of desire to meet with or finding substitute ways of feeling alive in that which is offered by the other side.